There we go. Hi, it's Butterfly, and we're continuing on with the day. I now have my little companion. You can't see him. Oh, my cat. He's absolutely gorgeous, and he's laying across all of my cards. Oh, come here, my monkey. No, don't. Let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. All right. Ugh. Claws. Come here. Ow, and my shoulder. Okay, you're not impressed. Isn't he gorgeous? He is such a beautiful kitty. Yeah, and he just wants to look at his tail. Like, look at that tail. He just walks. Do you know he's purring? I feel like I'm mangling him, and he's just purring. Oh, my yummy, yummy fuzzy bum. Yep. Okay. So now, ow, I know he's going to go elsewhere as soon as he lets go of my shirt. Come on, cat. This is Tiggity. Tiggity. My fuzzy bum. Mr. Fuzzy Pants. I have never heard him say that. Bye. Okay. I usually let him have his way anyway, so taking him off of his perching, his resting place, is not something I do. Typically what I do is, instead of doing a video, I would just get up, go someplace else, let him have his way, and then I'd come back. But this time I picked him up, and he's not used to that. He's used to getting his own way, so that was him protesting. Anyway, aside from all of that, we are now talking about the Four of Swords. Four of Swords, and I have quite a few decks here, like I've done with the past, sort of talking about the other swords, the other pips. And let's get into it. What do we see with the Four of Swords? Now, as I've said before, I'm giving you traditional meanings, very popularized meanings with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Now, the interesting part is when you look at the original meanings, like with Book T or whatever it is, like the meanings that they were originally said to have, because I've read elsewhere, but also I've been reading in this book. And sometimes they'll give like the original meanings for each card as were intended by Waite. These called the Waite's divinatory meaning. They don't necessarily coincide with our popularized version of what the cards are intended to mean these days. So, I think there's room for a lot of interpretation. And so, bearing that in mind, I'm not Waite. I'm not Pamela Smith. I'm not, I'm giving kind of like a popular consensus of what's been analyzed in these cards as a symbolism. So let's bear that in mind. And therein lies the artistic license that you may take with your interpretation of the cards as well. So nothing is set in stone. And a lot of what the cards mean not only comes from traditional meanings. I mean, if you need to have some kind of a foundation, as I have needed to have a foundation from which to work, it does not mean that you can exclude every other meaning. Like if this card makes sense when you're reading for somebody else, and your meaning that you're taking from this is completely different from what I'm saying, then go with it. Go with that. Okay, so it's the recipient, the person who's receiving the reading. That's the person who must benefit. So if you're reading for yourself, it's all great. If you're reading for other people, that's who has to benefit from the reading. Okay, here we are with the Four of Swords. There's a few things here that are kind of key. The first thing is that he is lying, and I'm saying he because there's a soldier, and back then I would take that most soldiers were male, and he's dressed with kind of the tunic that would have been worn by males at that time, who were serving, who were in the service of the king or queen. Okay, so this is he's sleeping in repose. He's resting in effigy. It seems to be some kind of a resting, sort of a funeral type of setting. You're not actually seeing, this is not the person themselves. They would be lying inside. This is more of a coffin. Actually, no, this is more of a casket, a stone-made casket, meaning that it's rectangular in shape. A coffin has more of those, those Dracula type, goes wider and then it goes more narrow towards the feet. That would be a coffin. This is a casket, but it's more than a casket. It's made out of stone or cement or some kind of so I think they call that a sepulcher. Anyways, we'd have to look that up. Not that it really matters. The thing is that the slab on top, this statue here, is not the person himself. This is the top of the casket. You'd remove this stone slab, slide it to the side. The person resting would be inside here, and then you'd slide the top back on. So this would be kind of like in the crypt, in the place where you would put the casket. So it was customary, from what I've read, it was customary at that time for soldiers to make their own resting place before they would go out to war. At times they would take, so I read, I don't know, I was not there, but at times they would lie in their casket and just think about the war that was upcoming. Take time to sort of gather their thoughts and make sure that everything was final and ready, so that if they didn't come back from war, if they died on the field, that everything was set and ready in place. So this is a time for contemplation. They would actually lie down in there and then get up and go, eventually go to war. So I read. The sword here is a place for his sword to be, placed inside. It's on the side of the casket here, so it's kind of like showing that it's his sword. But if it's on the side of his casket, it doesn't look like it's metal or a different color. It looks like it's the same color as the casket. So it looks like it's actually embedded within the casket itself. And if it looks like I'm really kind of overanalyzing things, if anything gets overanalyzed with every little detail, it's these cards. So it's okay. The reason why this is meaningful is that this is a card that talks about a time to contemplate, a time to rest, and to pull yourself away from all of the people from the outside world and to really meditate and reevaluate issues. Okay, now the other thing is that this is his sword, which has been separated from the other 3 swords here. These 3 swords, plus this one, means, adds up to the number 4. That there again with the symbolism is that his sword himself is being pulled away from everyone else who is from the outside world. So you are separating yourself. You're taking time to rest. You're taking time to recuperate. And so the meaning of this card, when you pull it, you can talk about it's a time to kind of heal from illness. It's a time to reevaluate brainy issues, cerebral issues, because it's the suit of swords. Also, with these 3 swords, what is important to note is that they are hanging above him, and they are strategically placed at 3 different places here, if you're looking at the chakra system. So this one aims to his third eye, which signifies intuition. It aims at his throat, which signifies communication. And also, well, I mean, really, if we're going to align it, it's at his navel, but it is said to be at his heart chakra, which is emotion. Oh, unless you're looking in another book, in which case it is at his navel, which is the solar plexus, and that is love. Okay, so I guess my eyes are a little wonky. So the solar plexus, which is love, I would actually attribute that to the heart chakra, but it really, really, you have to look at your systems and see where the meanings are for you. I agree with both. Okay, so here in the stained glass, I'll put it up nice and close. There's a few things here that are also illustrative of the meanings. So you have here a person who is of like a religious sort of a figure, kind of carrying that religious authority, who is giving a healing blessing to somebody who's a supplicant of sorts, somebody who's kneeling before that person to get some kind of a healing blessing. So that's what's going on there in that stained glass window. That's reminiscent of the message that's being given in this card, which would be that you are taking the time to receive a blessing from your inner sanctum, that you are withdrawing from everyone and receiving messages perhaps while you're in repose, while you are dreaming, divine messages that are coming from elsewhere. You are getting your blessing from an authority, a divine source. And even here, you really have to peel your eyes open to look at it, but above here in yellow is written PAX, which means Pax, which reads as Pax, which means peace. This is the kiss of peace. It's a benediction that the religious figure is giving to the supplicant. They're giving the kiss of peace. They're giving the blessing of peace to the person who's there asking for it. Now, my childhood priest would always, he's just retired this past summer, and he was known for saying, at the end of Mass, he would say, Pax tecum, Pax, P-A-X, te, T-E, cum, C-U-M, which is Pax tecum, is peace be with you. His blessing was peace be with you. And so that's really something that was driven into my memory, which is Pax tecum, peace be with you. And that is the blessing that's being given here. Here you're in repose and you're getting that peaceful sort of intuition that is coming to you. Okay, what else is going on here? Oh, it is a voluntary period of seclusion where you are not being set aside, you are not being shunned, you are actually actively, voluntarily taking yourself away from the madding crowd, from all of the noise and all of the chaos from elsewhere, and it is your time to gather your thoughts. Yeah, I think I basically hit on all the points that I wanted to say. Your shadow aspect, perhaps this is a time where you would withdraw. You know, this is a period of withdrawal, voluntary withdrawal. So the shadow aspect may be that you are withdrawing because you are avoiding problems rather than dealing with them head on. So that might be something that you're dealing when this card comes up for you and it reflects what you're feeling. You might want to ask yourself why you're withdrawing. Are you empowering yourself? Are you taking the time to replenish your own inner sources, your own energy level? You take time to rest or to heal from past wounds or illnesses? Or are you pulling yourself away from the chaos because it's something that you just are avoiding and you're not wanting to deal with those troubles? Those are the actions that you're taking, you're withdrawing, is the same, but the reasoning for it is different. And therein lies the meaning, the shadow work, that you have to kind of look inwardly and see why you're doing a thing. It may also be talking to, when you're looking at shadow aspects, it may also be looking at avoiding listening to your inner voice. So as you're taking this time to listen to your inner voice, the shadow aspect is avoiding your intuition. you know you should not be doing a thing, or you don't want to be doing a thing, or your inner voice is saying, beware, there's a red flag, and you're ignoring that. You're just, instead of taking your time to reevaluate the situation, you rush into it without thinking it through. And that can be something that you need to perhaps reflect on, that knee-jerk reaction that you have to situations. Food for thought, which is what is in our shadow, right? We need to kind of look at those automatic responses, those things that unconsciously, subconsciously motivate our behavior, and we want to find out why those things are there and how helpful those responses are, those automatic responses. So, a time for preparation. Let's look at other cards that have a similar kind of depiction. Now, here we have, which one is this one? This one is the Ghost Tarot. Okay, so here we're looking at the Ghost Tarot. And look at the back of this card. Isn't that gorgeous? That is just beautiful. All the shading and the, really? Anyway, so there we go. This is the Four of Swords. Now, in this Four of Swords, what happens is you have all four swords are aligned. There is nothing that's set aside. The pulling yourself away from the madding crowd, the isolation, that sense of the one sword that is his own being apart from the other three swords that are being put aside, that's not being shown in this depiction. You still have the, what I'm going to call a sepulcher, even though I'm not entirely sure that's the right word, but that casket, it's very ornate with the different layers of trimmings on the bottom. And you also don't have any kind of icons on the wall, any iconography, any kind of stained glass window, any images anywhere that are about giving a blessing. There is a light that is shining. Presumably this is a very dark crypt, so there is a light that's shining. So there's something, perhaps an electric light or a light that comes from a flame, but there is some kind of a light coming in from elsewhere, which can be symbolic of that divine inspiration that's coming in when you're in a position of rest. So that is the Ghost. Let's look at this one here, which is the Easy Tarot. This is another very similar one. I'm going to show you very shortly some that are very different in the way that they show the Four of Swords. So just hold on to your boots. Here we are here with this one, which is very similar. The things that are different, however, is that the three swords above are all aiming to his solar plexus, and he's this is actually him. It's not just the casket itself that's been made of stone or concrete, but it is the actual person who's lying down, and he's rather reaching for his sword there on the side. He's going to be handling the blade very shortly too, so those things are different. This one here too, this is from the Mystic Dreamers Tarot, and I just shook up a whole lot of cards on the inside that went flying in my box. This one here is a lot more reminiscent of the traditional depiction here, but she's a female, which is lovely to see. You have the stained glass on the top with what looks to be a kind of benediction scene. It's the Christ who is holding a lamb, and there's two lambs down below. So lambs and Christ, and it's a very peaceful thing. It looks like there's some ribbons of writing in there, which I can't quite read. But there's that stained glass imagery right behind, which is huge. Then you also have here the four swords, and again, they are grouped 2 and 2. So there's a symmetry to it, but nothing here where she's actually owning a sword or making use of a sword. She's barefoot, and she also has her hands kind of like this in that position. So there are some points to interpret here that are different from the Rider-Waite-Smith, which can be quite nice because, you might want to pull some different meanings for you. The grouping of the swords here being in 2 different pairs. Do you have any different meanings for things like that? The differences that I've pulled out, because those could be quite useful. Here we have the Wild Unknown. The Wild Unknown is a really special deck. I took a long time before I actually bought it, though I've had it for a few years now. But I took a long time before I bought it because it's similar but different, which is why it took me some time to warm up to it, but it's also why I like it. Because once you've been working with the cards for quite a while, which I have since teen years and early 20s, I think I started working with cards of different sorts. You like to see different images, right? So this is kind of nice. So here we see the lambs coming in, which is not seen in this, but the lambs is very much a sacrificial type of symbol. You have the third eye chakra on the lamb, and it's shining. So that is a very intuitive sort of inspiration that he's in a resting position. This lamb is resting, and he's getting his messages, his intuition there. The light up above, obviously, is that divine light, that message that's coming in during your time of rest. The 4 swords, again, are grouped, all 4 of them, one after the other, but they're all different styles of swords. So perhaps you'd like to add below what you get from this that may be, subtly different from the original meanings that I was explaining a little earlier. Now there are some that are getting to be farther and farther from the original, but still quite insightful. Now this one here is the Shadowscapes Tarot. This one's the book, so it says Shadowscapes Companion, but it's the Shadowscapes Tarot. And here, if you can get close up, you have this very wispy character who has eyes that are very closed, so lying in rest, and a very peaceful thing. This little object here looks like it's a dove, which is the sign of peace, a symbol of peace. Very wispy. I think that the wispiness around her head looks like thoughts, the thought process that's happening there, and it's intertwined with the sword, so that's very much in keeping with the meaning. Although you might pull from it different things as well, which I'd love to hear about. And again, you have that imagery of the 3 swords above her head pointing quite in a different direction, but there are 3 that are grouped up ahead, and then she has the one that she's pulling in closer here to her. This would be my sort of, the imagery there really makes me think of that divine message that's coming from a light source elsewhere, like maybe the light coming in from the stained glass window, or the light shining above from wherever it's coming so that we can see within. That this very warm light is quite a meaningful symbol of inspiration coming from the divine. So that is Shadowscapes. What else have I not done? This one here is the Vision Quest Tarot. Here they use the 4 feathers, and they call it the suit of air. So there's the 4 feathers of contemplation, and here you have that divine light coming in from elsewhere, from beyond, from above, from the divine, and that is sending you your message coming in, the light coming in through the dark. You have these 4 things that are not, the 4 feathers are not grouped 3 and 1, they are all together, but they're above the moon, they are above the intuition, which is interesting. And then you have this long trail, this road up ahead, the river that's in between. Okay, so that is that. And then we have this depiction right over here. which is from the Animal Totem. Animal Totem. Lisa Robertson. Look at this back. That's just so pretty. Anyways, the front looks like this. Here you have the grouping of the 3 + 1. You have a toad. You have vertical swords there. They're not necessarily pointing towards anything in particular. I think they're just meant to sort of look very much as the part of the arid area over here. Here he is aside, in repose, in his cool area where everything here is, that madding crowd, all those people in this hard to live in area, this desert part here. You're leaving that all away, all the harsh sun, and he is staying cool in his dark home down below, and he has his one sword there, just kind of thinking about things, right? So, I don't know. If I missed anything, please let me know on that one. This one, this Da Vinci. Here's the Da Vinci Enigma Tarot. By the way, the backs of these ones are not all the same. They're all rather different. They're similar, but different, the back of all of the cards in the Da Vinci. And they all kind of fit together. When you place all 78 cards, you can fit them together like a puzzle. But it's quite the puzzle to put together because they're all similar, these kind of snowflake sections. And I've never really stayed with it long enough to actually complete the puzzle. So if I do one day, I'll take a picture and just post it. Anyway, this is the 4 of Air. There's some hands. I don't know. I would have to stretch my imagination to see how that actually fits in the meaning. But they have on the bottom repose, because that is generally what is known as the meaning of the 4 of Swords. This is a time to contemplate, repose, to rest. I've shown that one. This one here, I love this deck. This is called the Impressionist Tarot. The book is rather small. That goes with it. It would qualify as one of these little black books, but it's a chunky one, and it is fabulous. It's really fabulous. Look at that. You get a full color picture of this, of your card, but then you get about 2 pages of each, like the description of each thing, of each card. So, and that's like 2 full pages. So let's just say this is Justice. There's a picture of the Justice card. You get 1 full page plus the other full page on behind. These things are all, there's like a reoccurring theme of the frames, the old frames, this old style frame. Everything is framed in this book. And the frames are also seen on the cards. The interesting part is that the back of the cards, looks like the back of a frame. So it looks like you have the wood frame there, an old style frame, and then you look at the art in the front, which is pretty cool. Okay. This here, so it's all the Impressionists, and what they've done is they've zoomed into different areas, much like they've done with the Da Vinci Tarot. They've zoomed into different areas. For instance, the sunflowers, they'll zoom into one sunflower and put a different meaning to it as they want the card. But so all of these different paintings you can look up. This one's really interesting. It's actually on, if I can find it upstairs, I'll have to show you maybe in a different video. This is on the cover of one of my dollar store scribblers that I have found. To just write with white paper inside. The cover of it has Impressionist paintings, and this is one of them. This is pretty popular. So this one is the 4 of Swords. The 4 Swords are above here. They're all pointing upwards. They're grouped together, and here down below you have a time where you can be, I guess, resting or recuperating as you're taking a drink with people. So it's not really staying away from the crowd. It's, in this card, you're actually, perhaps it's more for the extrovert who re-energizes by being with people. So perhaps that might be a reason to use this deck with somebody who's more extroverted. I'm not sure. Or perhaps perhaps the meaning might be consider, instead of withdrawing, to go and integrate yourself in with society and see if you can re-energize that way. If you have some alternative meanings, just let me know. I'd love to know how you pull together the meanings of the alternate meanings or the meanings of the cards. Yeah. This is the last one that I'm going to show you, and this is the Good Tarot. I quite enjoy Colette Baron-Reid. I like her art. These cards are too large for me to be able to shuffle, though, so I use these for myself unless I'm doing a slow reading, like by email, where I have the time to take pictures, because they really are lovely pictures. This is the Four of Air, so she goes by the elements and not by the sword. Here she looks like she is pulled aside. She's thinking. A lot of the other imagery, though, falls to the wayside. Other than the fact that she has wings, so she's angelic, and there's like a light source over, coming from here. That's as much celestial meaning that I can get from this. I don't know that she's getting her message from above or from beside her because she's already in heaven. I don't know exactly how this works. But what I do see is that just like the Vision Quest Tarot, here the swords are actually not swords, they are feathers. So if you look really closely here, the three feathers are above her. They're peacock feathers that are kind of more like an ornamental headdress, and right here. And then the other one is right here down below at the appropriate place, like at her solar plexus, and it's a lovely peacock feather. And so it is down below. So it's taken away a lot of the symbolism that, well, it's kept the symbolism, but it's taken away the actual symbols of the harshness of the sword. It's a lot more, it's a very soft kind of a depiction of those meanings. So you have the light, I guess, coming from above here. These are also, no. Yeah, so you have the light coming from above here and also from behind. And basically, when I come to a card that's like this, I just have to know my stuff, because if I'm looking for the cues that I have studied, I would find them only here. So there's some of these decks that I would say, might not be a good first deck if you want to learn traditional meanings, but I'm not so sure that traditional meanings are necessary. So it really depends, if you're buying a first deck, what it is that you're looking for. You may not know what you're looking for until you start looking at the traditional and then decide whether you want to stick with it or not. If you're like me, you kind of stick with traditional because it's traditional. So I don't know if you really want to make your choice up front from the beginning that way, or if you want to start learning intuitively to let that creative self really come through. Yeah. So that's what I have to say about the Four of Swords. I hope this has been interesting, helpful, educational, insightful. I hope this helps you in some way. And I do look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.